Welcome to 365 Brothers, the podcast. Have you wondered who are the Black men that you pass on the street every day? What are their lives like? Well, in this podcast, we have an in-depth conversation with Black men from all across America and all walks of life. Listen to their stories, their experiences, their wisdom. I'm your host, Robin Shine. Get comfy.
Today, we are speaking to an assistant professor in the Department of Professional Counseling at Monmouth University. He is also president of the New Jersey Counseling Association. He's an inaugural doctoral fellow for the National Board of Certified Counselors Minority Fellowship Program. And he's also the 2020 recipient of the Samuel H. Johnson Distinguished Service Award, given by the Association of Multicultural Counseling and Development. In short, I'm saying we have the distinct privilege of having a conversation with Dr. David Ford. Welcome, Dr. Ford. Anything else you'd like to share about yourself, Dr. Ford?
What's funny is that last night I was at Walmart and happened upon one of my fraternity brothers. I'll talk about my fraternity later on. And he's also a pastor. And I told him that, my platform as president of the New Jersey Counseling Association is to, look at this stigma of Black people in mental health, especially how the Black church demonizes mental health services. And he lit up and he asked me exactly what I did. I said, well, I took the counseling program. And another caveat to my platform is getting more Black men, especially, to enter the counseling field so that there are more practitioners who look like you and me. And so that's where I am right now with mental health and getting more of us to seek mental health and more of us to seek training to become mental health professionals, especially those of us that are saved, and I'm very serious about my salvation. I always say I stand on the shoulders of giants. One of those giants is who I worship. And I worship the Jesus and the real Jesus, the Black one, almighty Black Jesus. He was not some blonde-haired, blue-eyed figure, a man of color. And I also say I stand on the shoulders of giants because of my mentors in the counseling field that have imparted a lot into me and have supported me and mentored me and have led me to where I am right now. And I always say that I'm my grandmother's son. My dad's mom raised me. And so that foundation will be with me all throughout my life. I got my start working in Res Life. I was an assistant residence director at Winston-Salem State University, a small state-supported HBCU in North Carolina. And that was, new for me because of my passion for supporting Black men that attend predominantly white institutions. I'm a proud grad of Wake Forest University, for undergrad and for my master's. I had the pleasure of having a class with Dr. Maya Angelou when I was there as an undergraduate. And then I went to Old Dominion University and got a Ph.D. in counseling education, where I was the first Black man to get my Ph.D. in that program.
Wow.
Yeah. And because of my love for Black men at PWI, I'm also passionate about Black Greek life. I am a proud, active, and financial member of the greatest fraternity known to man, Kappa Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Oh, come on now. All that's going to do is next time I interview.
We Kappas are always trendsetters. My pastor is an Alpha, and we always go back and forth about that. But, it's all love. I love all Greeks. I love all Black Greeks, and I'm really passionate about it. And whatever your organization is, I just hope that you are working towards the objectives of your fraternity and supporting the community, or your sorority and supporting the community. My other interests lie in supporting Black and brown, queer and trans folks. People use the term people of color. I don't. I'm trying to get away from that because I want people to know that I'm looking to support Black people, and brown people. And people of color it's erasure for those of us that are in that group. And so I really want to support Black and brown, queer and trans people, and specifically Black and brown queer men who are HIV positive. So a lot of my work is in supporting that community and making sure that my students know how to support that community in the mental health setting. And also, I look at the intersection of career counseling. I've also done some work in addictions counseling. And so I really talk about how various labels of race, ethnicity, affectional orientation, and what have you impact the work that we do as counselors. In other words, I want my students to be prepared to work with someone who looks like me, someone who is different from them, and not fuck their shit up, you know?
Okay. It's funny. I have to mark so many of, not a lot, but some of my episodes as explicit. But that's just because that's the language that, that's just the language that gets used today. And I am a practitioner of salty language myself.
My students know. I'll throw an F-bomb, say a lot of things in class. And my students, they love my authenticity. I'm like, these are the things your clients will say to you. Your clients will come in and cuss you out. You got to be comfortable with that.
I teach high school. I have had the B word gently lobbed my way. So I do have a question for you. Given your specialty in supporting not just Black and brown men, but also those you specifically said who are HIV positive, is there something that led you? What was it that led you to kind of hone in on that group? Definitely they're in need, but how did that need come to you?
I tend to mentor a lot of Black and brown men who are queer identified, and there are so many that are HIV positive, and I hear so many stories about how they've been disenfranchised by mental health professionals.
Really? I am actually shocked by that.
Some folks just don't know what the virus does, and they're still afraid of it. They still stigmatize it. And so they just don't know what to say and what to do, how to act. And so I tell my students, what would you do if your client came into you the next session and said, hey, I just found out you're positive? I said, what you don't do is you don't say, I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that. You need to know exactly what the virus does. Sit with that person, be empathic. What if you had gotten some news like that? How would you want someone to talk to you? You don't want sympathy. You want someone to empathize with you and to make sure that you're safe. And, remember that is a brave thing to do, to tell you that.
I hope that there are practitioners who hear this whenever they hear this, and that it alters how they interact with the HIV positive population. So thank you for that stand. So let's go ahead and dive into these questions. What is your favorite song, either right now or of all time?
I'm also a classically trained pianist, and I've been playing in the black church.
In the church.
Since I was 12 years old. And my piano teacher, who was classically trained as well and had a degree in music, she made sure that I learned my hymn first, after learning all the classical first. Then she taught me gospel music. And I have always been a fan of the late, great Walter Hawkins and the Hawkins family. My all-time favorite song is Be Grateful. And not only because of the musicianship and the simplicity in the song, but it's the word. I have to be grateful for the good times and the bad, because the good times, the bad times help me to appreciate the good times. Just the words, be grateful. That song just always just like touches me. And I don't know, just that one song. He has written a lot of gems, but that one song would be my favorite.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So let's talk about your favorite childhood memory. And I know we all got, more than one, but if you had to share one, what's your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. This is going to be really cliche. I'm from the country. I'm from rural North Carolina. My uncle grew his own vegetables. And so we always have fresh veggies. My grandma cooked for a living. One thing I remember is sitting on the porch and selling peas during the summertime with her. We have this big bucket of fresh peas, and we shell all day, you know, and that's one of my fondest memories. And I see pictures of that, and it's reminiscent for me because you sit on the porch, and and so we see all the neighbors, and we say hello to them, they come over and talk, and I'd hear the older folks just talk about stuff, and I'd keep laughing. I'm like, what in the world? And just, you learn so much. Sometimes you learn too much by sitting on the porch telling people with your grandma.
Let me just ask you something. And you don't have to name any names, but I can hear in the background of what you shared that there are some characters that would stop by. Again, we ain't got to put anybody on blast, but do you have, yeah,
Everybody knew my grandmother. My grandmother worked at the high school. They would know Miss Lee Allen, and they would look at me and say, yeah, you Darcy's son, or you David's son. I know you. I better know your daddy, your mama, all your aunts, and your grandma too. And so everybody would stop by my grandma's house, mainly because she always had food cooked too, and so she fed everybody, even the folks that the stone cold drunk. They come by and say, "Hey, Miss Lee Allen," grandma wouldn't turn them away. She wouldn't. If they needed anything to eat, she had it. She'd give it. She didn't care whether you did drugs, you were drunk, or whatever. You stopped by the house, she knows exactly who you were. And, it was just reminiscent of who she was. I mean, she was stern. We didn't always see eye to eye. But, she did some things that she didn't have to do. And I really appreciate that. But, yeah, we had some characters. We had some characters stopping by.
I can tell. And I also appreciate you painting for us a picture of your grandmother and her generosity. She obviously accepted people for who they are, who they aren't, the whole enchilada, as they say. So that's really beautiful. Now, we're going to talk about accomplishment. From the introduction, everybody already know you're accomplished, so that's a given. But what I'm interested in is, of these accomplishments, there are two that I want to know about. And they may be the same or they may be different. One, I want to know the accomplishment that's most important to you in your life. And then secondly, the one that, in your estimation, is the one that others are most impressed by.
I don't know if it's an accomplishment or not, because I just think that some things are just ordained by God. But, my salvation, and see, that was bought on a cross, over 2,000 years ago. But God gives us free will in making that decision to make him my savior. Now, to me, and I don't really call it an accomplishment, but, making that decision to get saved and to try to live my life as best as possibly as a follower of Christ,
Yes.
And so that's very important to me. I'm not perfect. I fall short. Lord knows I do. But I always acknowledge the fact that, I'm a sinner saved by grace.
Understood. And what about the accomplishment that seems to impress the others?
And my mom still makes a big deal of this, and I finished in 2014. I'm getting my Ph.D.
Yes.
That's a lot of people, even people that I grew up with say, "Hey, doc," I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" I don't want to take that from them, And so that's one of the accomplishments a lot of people really, really hone in on, is the fact that I earned my PhD.
Yeah, and it is quite an accomplishment. It takes something to do. If it was easy, everybody would have one.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm interested in the words that inspire you. What is your favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book?
I attribute this one to one of my former pastors. And he used to always say, "A setback is a setup for a comeback."
Nice.
My life hasn't been easy. I've had some setbacks in my life, but I look back on them and they have contributed to me being who I am right now. Those lessons learned really helped me to be an effective counselor, a good professor, and a good person. And so that phrase always inspires me. My favorite poem is Invictus. Because when I do speeches, I always start with that and ground my topic in each of the stanzas. And so when I was learning it, I was able to break down what those stanzas mean. And I got to thank Miss Joyce Stackhouse, my high school English teacher, for teaching me that. A Black woman and a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, who taught me that poem back in the ninth grade. That was 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I really appreciate her for introducing us to that poem and what that poem means to me to this day.
Can you just say a few words about it, the author, and what it's about in general?
Yeah, Invictus is William Ernest Henley, and it starts, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever guides me for my unconquerable soul. The last stanza is the one that really stands out. It matters not how straight the gate, nor charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
A person, moment, or conversation that stands out as changing the trajectory of or setting the foundation for your life.
I got to give a shout out to Dr. Joel Mark Fillmore. I met Joel when I was a doctoral student. We met on LinkedIn, and we immediately made a connection. I got the chance to meet him in person at a conference, the ACA conference, American Counseling Association. This was Cincinnati, March of 2013. And we got a chance to really hang out. I met him, and at the time, he was a doctoral student at Northern Illinois University, getting his doctorate in counselor education as well. And then another friend of his, Misty Lugo, they were in the same program. And all three of us have backgrounds in student affairs. And at the time, my original career trajectory was to be a vice president for student life, or vice president of student affairs. Joel and Misty set me down and said, David, I know you want to go back into student affairs when you're done, but you will be doing yourself and counselor education a disservice because you're a Black man getting a doctoral degree in counselor education. We need more Black men teaching counseling. We don't have that many. And the student affairs field is comparatively flooded with Black men with Ph.D. We need you here. And you have a skill set and a voice that we need. And besides, you'd be more apt to get a job as a professor than as an administrator. And that was just the icing on the cake because of my experiences as a PhD student. I got a chance to teach my own class as a doc student, assist with teaching some of the master's and doctoral level courses, provide my own clinical supervision for master students, do some group counseling and individual counseling. And so those experiences had me rethinking what I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure yet. Then the conversation with Joel really changed my life and gave me that push to reorient my career trajectory.
In a separate conversation, you shared with me the importance of, or maybe actually it was earlier in the interview, of having more African American men join the profession. And so this, I can see where that conversation is the foundation for that commitment. And
yes.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you. So then, what is a moment or an event that for you either signifies or highlights the experience of being an African American male in America?
Oh my goodness. It's not just one event. I always say, get yourself a tribe. Get you a tribe. You need a tribe of folks that you trust, that you have the same, outlook. You don't always think the same, but, you're able to work with them. You trust them to call you out. You trust them to hold you accountable. And I have a couple of those, but there's one tribe that stands out to me. And I'm going to name them by name. There's Dr. Linwood Vereen, Dr. Michael Heyman, Dr. Jason Brandt, Dr. Matthew Bonner, Dr. Tice Nadrich, and Dr. Alfonso Ferguson. We have carved out a home place. Each year we go to this home place for a week and write. We're all Black men. We're all counseling professors and counseling professionals. And it's a week for us to write and to bolster our scholarship. Because all of us are full-time professors and working towards promotion and tenure. Now, Dr. Hannon and Dr. Vreen already have promotion and tenure. I go up next year for promotion and tenure. And both of them have a clear record of successful scholarship. Not just scholarship, but successful. We write all week and they give us feedback on our writing. We've done projects together, working on another project right now to talk about our experience. But for me, being among Black men who are working to support other Black men, to me, that is the quintessential relationship that we have. People talk about we're not together and Black people don't support each other. I say bullshit to all of that. There's no such thing as a crabs in the barrel mentality in our community. And so we need to stop perpetuating those negative stereotypes about ourselves. You know, we can talk about this whole myth of Black on Black crime, which is bullshit, and the whole myth of the absolute Black father, and the fact that, you know, we're the worst to each other, those false narratives. What I see is we support each other. Even in our respective spaces, I see these brothers of mine supporting other Black men. To me, that's who we are.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. As you were talking about some of those things that you say are myths, I was like, but wait, there's that. Wait, but there's data. Wait, but there's that. And then I thought, and then I really got what you were saying, which is we could talk about there's 20% of bad in some category, but then that's 80% that's doing great. And so I hear what you're saying. We're not defined by the statistics that seem to point to the negative. We can always talk about that, and yes, we can work on that, but we could also talk about the success and bring that into our regular ongoing conversations about who we are, right? Like, I don't actually know, what are the percentage of African Americans who stay married? I'm sure it's pretty high, instead of talking about the ones that don't work, all of that. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Is there anything else you want to say about that before I go to the next question?
When I say the myth of Black on Black crime, I say it's a narrative that was created back in the 80s to make Black people seem more criminal than everybody else. But according to the crime stats, you know, white folks commit crimes against white folks at an even higher rate. But you hear people talking about white on white crime, do you? You know?
Right.
You know, last time I checked, the CDC talked about Black men being the most engaged fathers of any demographic. People look at the father not being in the home all the time as a child that doesn't have a Black father, but the father's still in his life, you know? And so you can't conflate those statistics and make them fit your narrative, Candace Owens. You can't conflate those statistics and make them fit your narrative, Donald Trump. So we have to look at the underlying systemic processes that lead to a lot of those statistics. And people don't do that research like they're supposed to.
As an educator, I am an advocate for seeing the headline, reading what it says, and then going and looking up what else was not in there, or what is it based on? What was the question that got that answer? All of that. So thank you. Have you had, Dr. Ford, any interactions with law enforcement? And is there, that you can share, good, bad, or
those
whatever?
Motherfuckers. Okay.
Like I said, explicit here. Go ahead.
I will say this much. I'll admit that I'm a speed demon. I do drive fast. And I drive a nice car, you know. I want to have a nice ride. And my license plate read ODU Ph.D. I have my college stickers all over my car. the first question these bastards ask me is this your car?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing good and damn well you're already looking me up in your system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, you know what? I want to slit your throat right now, but I can't because I go to jail. So just give me the damn ticket and let me go.
How often do they ask that question to a white man driving that car? I wonder.
They don't. And so, you know, and I know that a lot of my brothers and sisters have had much worse experiences. One thing I've learned is that no matter, I wear a bow tie every day. They don't give a shit about that. I have a PhD, they don't give a shit about that. All I see is my black skin and then it's a weapon. So, yeah.
Understood. Speaking of America, in the largest sense, if the U.S. were a woman, whether girlfriend, friend, stranger, neighbor, lover, wife, if America was a woman, what would you say to her?
I will not say what I want to say because I don't want to disrespect your recording. Because there'll be a whole bunch of colorful language and me cussing that bitch out.
I think we got the gist of it.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate? You know, what she do? What she do?
First of all, your founding father, the people that birthed you, were so lazy as fuck that they had to go to another continent to pull folks over here and do the work you didn't want to do, and then you made them look like animals and treat them like animals and make them feel like they were less than human, and you still dehumanize them and you still want to treat them right and want to give them what they're supposed to get. And so now you're afraid that if they were to ever get any power, you know that one phrase about Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd will be so afraid that Bugs Bunny gets the gun. You're afraid that if we get the power, that we'll do to you what you've done to us. You have constantly abused us and used us and pushed us to the side where you don't want us to thrive. But baby, your day of reckoning is coming, and it's coming swiftly.
That's clear. All right. Now that we done talked to her, Dr. Ford, what is love to you?
My other tribe is Dr. Yamanchi Cooper, Dr. Don Trehan, and Dr. Rufus Tony Spann. These are 3 other black men that I can say that I love. And when I say I love them, they all have really big places in my heart. I would cut somebody if they hurt them. You know, they mean the world to me. We fall out. We stop talking to each other at times, but at the end of the day, I know that I can depend on them, and I want them to feel like they can depend on me. These guys are the epitome of black love and black men loving on each other. To me, that's love. Another example of love is Mr. Dedrick DeMarcus Ford, my brother. We're 2 years apart. We're the polar opposite. I mean, we're just total opposite. My brother is drop dead gorgeous, and I love him so much. I do, and he means the world to me. And you know, to me, that's love.
What is it? Because I hear when you say you guys are opposites, but you know, there's love. So tell me about that between you and your brother.
Okay, so I was the one that was always doing well in school. He didn't. I went to college. He went to the Marines. He loves manual labor. I'm not getting any dirt under my fingernails and my manicure. Let's see. He loves to do like blue collar jobs. He works at Smithfield, the hog plant, and he loves his job. I'm not doing any of that type of thing. He has kids. I don't want any of those little motherfuckers. No.
Got it. And yet,
I'll spoil my nieces and nephews. I love them, but I don't want they have to go back to their mom and daddy when they leave me. And he can't cook worth a lick. I love to cook and bake, but you know, we were raised in the same house, grew up the same way, you know, because they were polar opposites.
I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything about you that we haven't covered that challenges the stereotype of Black man? And I asked that question, but the reality is so much of who you are and what's already come out of this conversation is, it's all that. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with our podcast listeners?
Well, see, I have an issue with that question because there is no stereotype. The only stereotype of Black men that I know of is the one that white folks perpetuate, and they were all violent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Black men aren't a monolith. We come in all different types, shapes, sizes, shades, different walks of life, different opinions. My thing is, I don't want to get into this perpetual white standard of Black respectability. This whole what a Black man wears determines his worth. What a Black man does determines his worth. And so, even though I'm what white people would say, someone who talks well, whatever that means, dresses well, whatever that means, that doesn't mean I'm any more valuable than the brother who's sagging his pants and speaks with African American vernacular English. So I don't. That's what I want to challenge. I want to challenge this notion that George Floyd's death was less valuable than Botham Jean's death because of who they were, and that's the narrative that a lot of people are pushing. Some of us are pushing that narrative. That's the kind of narrative that I want to challenge because of George Floyd's alleged past, and then the rumors that surround his death and his life make him less valuable and his murder more justified, and we shouldn't be pushing him as a martyr. Candace Owens, and he never is a martyr. The man just was murdered for no reason.
Yeah, well said. One of the things I love about doing these interviews, so first, I appreciate your response to the question itself. And one of the reasons for the podcast is to share that Black men are not a monolith and to challenge the stereotypes. But one of the things that I got from what you shared is my father would not have been valued by society. He went to prison. He did not go to college, didn't finish high school. As you were talking, I had never imagined how my life would have been different without having him, had he been taken by the police in some altercation or whatever might have led to an earlier death that he wasn't around for me to have conversations with when I was going through college and things like that. And so when you made the comment about, the value of their worth, it really touches me that you're right. And it's not just in our community. The same, it's part of the larger American culture. And if you're a Kardashian, then we're interested in what you have to say. If you, so-and-so, then not so much. And it is definitely time to move beyond that. So thank you for that. I say it's time to move beyond that. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but but at least in us having this dialogue about it and people hearing it, it could be one more drop in that bucket to have us look at it at least. Those are the formal questions I always ask my guests. Now that we have engaged in this conversation, what are you more aware of now than maybe you were before the conversation, or something you see or something you're taking from having had this conversation?
That we need to have more conversations like this. We need more forums like this to talk about.
I just want to thank you, Dr. Ford, for the contribution you are to other Black men. You said in the interview that you don't want no kids. As an educator, I don't want no kids either, but I pour love into my students. I don't want no kids. I ain't got no kids. That's over. But I pour love into my students. And the thing I hear in the whole interview with you is how much you pour love into Black and brown men so that they can flourish. You have clearly flourished in your life, and you are making sure through your counseling, through your professional associations, through your collegial associations, through your fraternity. You are making sure that Black and brown men have a shot at fulfilling on who they most want to be. And for that, I say thank you. I'm really just very moved by who you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. As you can hear, you do not want to miss any of these brothers. Make sure you subscribe. You can find more at our website, 365brothers.com, 365brothers.com. This is Robin Shine. To listen is to love.